Howdy, Fullmetal Cowboys, straight shooting a review of the anime film Escaflowne the movie. This is known in Japan as Escaflowne, and it was also released under the title Escaflowne, A Girl in Gaia. This film is an alternate retelling of the anime series The Vision of Escaflowne, and this film was released in 2000, 4 years after The Vision of Escaflowne began airing. Well, explaining all that technicality was sure a mouthful, but it was necessary for me to address so you can have an understanding of what this anime film was like. Many years ago, before I even saw The Vision of Escaflowne, I actually remember watching the opening sequence to this film, and I was wondering, what is this? This looks awesome! And then I learned it was Escaflowne the movie. But because it was getting late at night, I decided to not watch the rest because I probably would fall asleep. And it took me quite a number of years for me to finally experience Escaflowne the movie. But I had already experienced The Vision of Escaflowne, and knowing that this was an alternate retelling of the same series, I just felt, what was the point of Escaflowne the movie? I already saw 26 episodes of a good story with good characters in it. Why would I want to watch a theatrical version that is crammed down in comparison? That was me then, and now that I review multiple mediums on this channel, I had a reason to watch the film. And honestly, even if I didn't see the film, I knew that The Vision of Escaflowne, the anime series that came before it, was a better experience, because really an alternate retelling of the same story I felt was unnecessary. And so I finally watched Escaflowne the movie back in October of 2019, thanks to a friend of mine allowing me to open up her copy to verify something in the Funimation dub of that film. And while I did verify that with her, I decided to take it upon myself to watch the film before I handed that film out to her with no scratches on either disc. And heck, not only did I verify one thing that she wanted to know, I also took it upon myself to make sure that both discs work so she doesn't have a defective disc on either of them. And of course, I made sure that the DVD and the Blu-ray disc were in pristine condition before I handed out that copy to her that she wanted. And there really was no complaint about this, so I'm just going to move on to the actual review. Now, just like The Vision of Escaflowne, Sunrise was involved in Escaflowne the movie. But unlike the series that came before the film, Bones was responsible for the animation. So yes, The Vision of Escaflowne's theatrical alternate retelling is a joint production of two studios. I must say, from its presentation, Escaflowne the movie really made a first impression, because the opening sequence of the film is clearly the best part about Escaflowne the movie, because the animation is incredible when compared to what came before it. While Escaflowne the movie is well animated for an anime film, there is one thing I don't like about the overall presentation of Escaflowne the movie, and that is the character designs. I don't think they look as good as the character designs in the series that came before it. I don't hear much of a debate between the series and the film in terms of presentation of character designs, but if there is to be a debate, allow me to bring up an anime series, Fullmetal Alchemist. The character designs in that series were quite faithful to the character designs in Hiromu Arakawa's masterpiece of a manga. Now, after the 2003 Fullmetal Alchemist series ended, there was, of course, Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood that started in 2009. The character designs in that anime were also as faithful to the character designs in the manga. I'm not saying that the character designs in Escaflowne the movie are terrible. I just find them to look odd in comparison to the character designs in The Vision of Escaflowne, where I never really had a single issue with how the characters looked in that series. Character design aside, the animation is worth looking at, and I would say that's one of the strong merits that Escaflowne the movie holds. It's just those character designs are the one thing that don't really stick out as well as everything else in regards to visual presentation. Because Escaflowne the movie is an alternate retelling of The Vision of Escaflowne told in a feature-length running time, This spells a major flaw with Escaflowne the movie, and that is the plot, especially with the pacing of Escaflowne the movie. There's a number of things that are happening in Escaflowne the movie, and how this film goes about those particular events has uneven pacing to it. But the plot really isn't what gets hit hard the most. What definitely suffers in the Escaflowne film are the characters. They're not as well characterized than in the series, and that's because with the series that came before it, there was enough time establishing, setting, and developing characters. And we do not get much of that in Escaflowne the movie. So yeah, my thoughts on Escaflowne the movie are not entirely positive. And one of the first things that came into mind was, what was the point of this? Why retell something that was already good enough before and tell that same story but twist it around in a feature-length running time? I really liked Hitomi in The Vision of Escaflowne, and seeing as how Escaflowne the movie is an alternate retelling of that series, of course Hitomi would be one of the drastic changes made for Escaflowne the movie. And I really do not like Hitomi in Escaflowne the movie. She is one of the changes that I really hated out of Escaflowne the movie. Even though The Vision of Escaflowne is one of my favorite animes of all time, Escaflowne the movie does not add to my love of Escaflowne. I will just go back to The Vision of Escaflowne and call it good. And when I do eventually own The Vision of Escaflowne on Blu-ray, I will not have anything to do with Escaflowne the movie. I have no desire to add that to my anime collection. I would rather buy the soundtrack instead. Yeah, I know it's kind of late for me to address the soundtrack late in this review, but the soundtrack to Escaflowne the movie is actually the best part about the film. Hajime Mizuguchi and Yoko Kanno, who composed the music for The Vision of Escaflowne, do return to compose the music for Escaflowne the movie. If there's one thing from the series that carried over into the film that is just as great as what came before it, it was the music. The great qualities of the music in The Vision of Escaflowne are also present in Escaflowne the movie. And there is one song in particular that truly stands out in Escaflowne the movie. And that song is Sora, or Sky. And I know for sure I'm not the only one that's thinking that this song in particular sounds like music from The Legend of Zelda. And speaking of The Legend of Zelda, it definitely has been a long time since I last reviewed a Zelda game. And the voice acting, which I will be very brief about, is on par with what the series had. This applies to the original Japanese cast, the Ocean dub or Bandai dub, and the Funimation dub. What I said in my review of The Vision of Escaflowne regarding the voice cast of those three versions apply in Escaflowne the movie. At the end of the day, Escaflowne the movie is an anime film worth experiencing for its visual presentation alone. If you want to see great animation, go ahead and give this film a try. The soundtrack is the best thing that came out of Escaflowne the movie, as I've already said before, and it is the one thing worth salvaging out of Escaflowne the movie. But as for plot and characters, as well as the pacing, those are things that the series, The Vision of Escaflowne, flaws and all, did much better on in comparison. Now, if you like The Vision of Escaflowne, recommending Escaflowne the movie is actually quite complicated. And I can only say this for two sides. If you really care about plot and characters, I do not recommend buying this film because, like I said before, the series did a much better job on the pacing as well as how the characters and plot are handled, even with its flaws. Even though I'm not very fond of Escaflowne the movie, although I do acknowledge the great merits it has, I think many of us can agree that the 8-volume manga that began in 1994 didn't look that great in comparison to the vision of Escaflowne and Escaflowne the movie. I'm going to be shooting a 4.5 out of 10 for Escaflowne the movie. And that's my review of Escaflowne the movie. And I do want to point out that I have not reviewed manga on this channel yet, and that is something I'm looking into. Now, does this mean I'm going to start off with the Escaflowne manga that I just mentioned? No. I don't even plan on reviewing it just yet. And it's definitely going to be a long while until I do such a thing. But for now, I'm pretty much done talking about Escaflowne for the time being. And I suppose the next time I do talk about Escaflowne in any form, it's probably going to be a Redux review of the Vision of Escaflowne in this one. I think that review and this one deserve another take. But that's another time that we'll have to wait, because I got other things I want to work on as well. So I'll be reloading for my next review, so until then, see you later.